Okay, we're live. Testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn death is the death of family ties. Well, this episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. Scott is not here because he was having some issues with Henry that he had to take care of, so we're sad to see him have to skip out on this episode, but it's totally fine because he might be tweeting in as we're recording. He'll be watching along live on YouTube and then tweeting us with insights to this awful, awful episode. How you doing, Corey?
I'm great. It's sad not having Scott here chiming in with us, especially in an episode that I somehow or another sat dumbfounded with my mouth slack-jawed watching this episode, not writing notes down. I mean, the first act was, to me, the shortest first act I've ever seen because nothing happened. The only thing I thought was nothing happened. I mean, I understand that Aunt Trudy dies. I get that. But past saying...
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Besides saying Aunt Trudy dies, can you tell me what happens in this episode? Nothing.
Nothing. Oh, a lot of tears.
A lot of tears. And in all fairness, not a bad performance by Justine Bateman given the material she was given.
Honestly, can I say this? They cribbed so many of their notes for the My Name is Alex episode coming up in the season 5 or whatever, the Emmy award-winning episode and everything.
Right.
I think Justine Bateman does a better job in that driver's seat than Michael J. Fox does 2 seasons hence.
Mm-hmm. I thought she did a really, really nice job. I thought she was sort of hamstrung by the material, but ultimately I thought, okay, I was okay watching her performance. You know, it's hard to muster up that many tears, and especially when the fundamental idea of this episode is that we should give a rat's ass about this woman dying who we've known for 6 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, she dies at 8 minutes and 30 seconds, right. And so we only have 6 minutes to invest ourselves.
So you're asking for me to care deeply about somebody who not only don't we know, but somebody who's never been mentioned by the Keatons before, and we spend every Thursday night with them. So I just don't quite get it. Yeah. I don't understand how they thought. To me, the way that this works best is for them to actually build a character that has an arc that ends with their death, not build a character whose arc starts and ends in the same episode. It works a lot better when there's a little bit of a buildup. Like if we had killed Gina Davis tonight, then I would have felt a little worse because we had known Gina Davis for 2 episodes.
Oh my God, that would have been so insane. It's like this gorgeous woman and Alex has a crush on her and she has this whole history of being a trust fund baby. And then in the 3rd episode we see her, she dies.
Yes, heroin addiction, some horrible heroin overdose. That would have made a lot more sense to me than this woman who... And even it was sort of ham-handed the way they sort of made her, the incarnation of Jesus Christ. She was kind and she helped children and she loved dance and laughter and music and singing and encouraged the nieces and nephews in the arts and spoke lovingly of her husband. And boy, they canonized her. They made her Mother Teresa in the first 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they give her a chest pain and she's gone.
I was like, it was crazy because I was actually going to say, it's like if you were living in Jerusalem and Jesus came into town and then 6 days later, like the whole world explodes. Like you're like, oh, who's this guy? And then it turns out he's actually the Son of God. That's who Aunt Trudy is.
She's really good in the first few minutes. And, of course, they have to make her really good in the first few minutes so that Mallory can mourn something in the last few minutes.
Yeah. You have to lay a lot of track for Mallory to skate for the next, 22 fucking minutes.
Really? So I thought, okay, at least that worked a little bit better than the beginning worked for me. It just, it was very obvious where this was going from the very start. It was another one of those episodes where, haven't we seen this before? I mean, not on Family Ties, but on other television shows, we've seen this. Somebody dies and, I don't know, she wasn't being honored correctly. And I thought Mallory was totally in the right, and I thought that everyone in this episode was sort of ignoring her cry for attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll get to that definitely, you know, later on with like Alex is being a dick, and then Steven in the final, like where they do the Family Ties tete-a-tete. Steven is a fucking asshole.
I thought he was a dick too. It was like, that sort of surprised me. He didn't really back down. He sort of was like, no, Dad's going to teach you a life lesson right now. No, I thought she taught us the life lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. I was shocked at his take on everything.
Well, you know, after the last episode and this episode, when you combine them, all I can think is this show has lost its footing without Elise. She balances the show out, and all these episodes that they had to write this season during season 3, while Meredith Baxter Birney was on bed rest, all the episodes they had to write without her, I really feel like they're sort of like almost like trying to stay alive on the ropes. They're trying to keep their fists up. They're trying to stay in there and not always succeeding. And this is an episode that I really feel sort of is an example of them not succeeding without Elise. They're putting strong females in the episodes. You know, every one of these episodes without Elise has a strong female guest star. And I admire that. You need to have a strong woman, but it's still, I'm not really sure that any of these are working on a Family Ties level.
Yeah. I bet, you know what, though? I mean, Corey, let's just like brainstorm for a second, because there's not a fuck lot to talk about in this episode. So let's just. But here's the thing, because I think you're totally dead on. Every episode that Meredith Baxter isn't in, and especially the further we get into these later episodes where they keep floundering around, I feel like right now, if we gave each other 5 minutes, we could come up with something of like, all right, she's going to be gone for 8 episodes. What can we say? Where's she going to be? What's going to happen? And it's real simple. I don't know why they seem to make it so difficult on themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do. And for some reason, it worked when Gina Davis had the first Gina Davis episode worked really well. Second one, not as well as the first one did. But I thought that was pretty strong. But boy, this one, there's just nothing happening in this. And a lot of it is repetitive later on. It just, I don't know. And two new sets. They had to build 2 sets for this episode.
Yeah, and they're not going to be doing a Family Ties reproduction of Richard III. So no. that casket is never coming back.
Never coming back. It's like, oh man. And that way, they didn't spend a lot on that set, on the funeral set. They spent more on the hospital set because they had to do extras and all. You know, it's just, that's a no-no for these guys. Gary David Goldberg must have been like, no extras, don't ever hire extras.
Yeah.
And then every time they go to Gleason.
Let's start.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, let's start at the top very quickly, because there's nothing much to say beyond the fact that they set up this recurring gag that the first thing we learn is that they're setting up for a garage sale.
Right.
And out of the gates, Alex is being a dick by selling all of his sister's items, personal items.
Calling it his contribution.
Yes.
So he's selling Mallory's stuff, and she's not even home at the time, and he's like contributing Mallory's stuff.
Exactly. Because Mallory is out at seeing Swan Lake with Aunt Trudy, and like we said, we have no idea who this woman is, and it took until like minute 19 or 20 that we learned that she's Steven's aunt. So she's like great Aunt Trudy.
Right. She's like Steven's mother or father's sister.
Right, exactly. And so they went to see Swan Lake. They come back, And what's really funny to me is that the actress playing Aunt Trudy, there's this thing where they're trying to put on airs, and Aunt Trudy's British accent was so good, I forgot if she was actually supposed to be English. It's like when actors have to sing and they sing way too well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's clear right from the beginning that this isn't just an aunt who you see at Thanksgiving and Easter, but this is an aunt who has an impact on your life in some way. And so they create this impactful aunt in just a few moments. And she's so loving, and you think, well, don't you have kids of your own? Why are you expending this energy on your own children instead of on Stephen and Elise's children? Wouldn't you have grandchildren by this point in your life? Shouldn't you be spending time with your grandchildren? Why are you spending time with Stephen and Elise's children? I don't get it. Why have you formed this intense bond with Mallory that we're now 22 and 22, we're about 55 episodes into this thing, and we've never heard your name mentioned once. We've never heard Mallory talk about you and how close she is to Aunt Trudy. How, gee, I wish Aunt Trudy would come and visit. Mrs. Olbeck we hear about all the time. Susie Farkas we hear about all the time. Aunt Trudy, who seems to be a truly important person in the kid's life, never heard of her before.
Important to the point that they say in the episode, she and Mallory see each other once a week. I don't even talk to my mom on the phone once a week, and yet she sees Mallory once a week.
And she probably's got like a 2-hour bus ride from Columbus to Dayton.
Oh,
so
yeah,
close.
that woman has like a shitty car, if anything. Yeah. Oh, so are we to assume that her husband died? Is that what happened?
I think so. She speaks lovingly about him like he's in the past.
Okay, all right. Then like the scene ends with a quick thing that pissed me off. Skippy comes in, and he's carrying a stuffed mounted deer trophy head with ties all over the antlers, and multiple times they call it a moose head when it's obviously not a moose.
It's not a moose. They wrote that there. It's not a moose head.
Yeah, you don't think any of those writers watched Bullwinkle as a kid? Good God.
I like the poll that we have up on Twitter.
Oh, what's the oh shit.
Oh yeah, Scott posted
I'm retweeting.
Yeah, Scott.
Oh boy.
Scott says, what will I say more during this broadcast? Fuck me, shoot me, or kill me?
Oh my God. I don't know. What would you... Let's put our finger on the scale. What are you gonna say?
I don't know. I already voted that I think I'm gonna say kill me more.
I think, honestly, I think kill me only because it's an episode about death.
Yeah, and I haven't even mentioned yet, my mother's name is Trudy. So every time they said Trudy in this episode, it was like a knife through my heart.
Oh, no.
It's all about
Aunt that's Trudy. So sad. Is her name actually Gertrude?
Well, she was born Gertrude, but like Mallory, if you called her Gertrude or Gertie in front of her, she would read you the riot act. You'd be hard-pressed to get yourself back on your feet again. So if anybody knows her...
Gertie is a terrible...
Mm-hmm.
Gertie is a terrible nickname. It doesn't sound good.
Mm-hmm.
You would need to be like a Victoria's Secret model in order to make Gertie sound anything but awful.
There's got to be one. There's got to be some hot Gertie somewhere. Probably in Germany.
Oh, that's true. That's a good one.
Hello, good.
Come down to Hamburg.
Yes. Good. Oh, she's so hot. Look at the titties on her.
So we're later on. Okay, so this is a two-part episode of madness. So last episode was crazy as hell, but so much fun. This one is crazy as hell, and it's so sad. So we're in scene 2, and we are in the living room. Mallory is standing on like an apple crate, and Aunt Gertrude is sewing or like tailoring or hemming her skirt.
Yes. That's how close they are.
It's so weird.
They're so close that she's going to hem her skirt.
And so Mallory's talking about how she's not good at school and she's not really smart. And Trudy's like, well, how often do you do your homework? And she's like, never. And then Trudy's like, well, you should double that. And I'm like, hey, Trudy, you're a fucking moron. If you double 0, it's still 0.
She was also very supportive of Mallory, who I'm paraphrasing now. I'm boy crazy. You know, when she says things like that, like, all I can think about is boys. And then Aunt Trudy goes, oh dear, I understand. And so, I can't concentrate on my schoolwork because all I can think about is boys and sex. Oh dear, I was married once, I understand. Yeah, Aunt Trudy's the coolest aunt in the whole world, but she's also borderline moron.
she doesn't understand a simple math, and she loves giving hand jobs in Model Ts.
Apparently, the use of the word, was it rumble seat? Is that what the phrase is? Which is so far before my time, I didn't even know what it was. It was like, run and fending off boys' advances from the rumble seat.
Yeah.
Like,
I was trying to do the
Benjamin Franklin?
That was insane. I mean, it couldn't even happen. Like, if she were like 70 years old in 1984, she would have been born in 1914. So in the 30s, they didn't have like Packards and shit.
No.
Yeah.
But boy, Skippy's in an awful lot of this episode too.
Ugh, that's a bad sign right there.
So I always think it's the lack of Elise forces their need to put other people in these episodes, like Skippy, where I'm seeing way too much. You know, as we've said many a time, Skippy is much better used in very small doses.
Yeah, at Jennifer levels, Skippy is good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's how he gets introduced in this scene, is that Mallory is like, hey, I'm a moron, but guess what? I've been working on this in ballet class that we've never seen her take. She starts doing the most awful dance. Like, I could be more graceful. Like, ready? Here, wait, ready? Here we go. Meanwhile, Justine Bateman is falling around like she's drunk. I was like,
all I could think of,
how can
all I could think of was I wanted to hear what Justine Bateman said when she said, hey guys, you know, I don't really ballet dance. And they went, yeah, you'll be fine. And she went, guys, can we find something else? Because I'm not really a ballet dancer. And they went, yeah, you'll work this out, Justine. You'll be just fine. There's not really a lot of dancing involved. And she went, okay, I guess you guys know best. You guys would tell me if I look foolish, wouldn't you? And they go, yeah, of course, we'll tell you if you look foolish. And then they just filmed the fucking scene.
Yeah. They had to keep running off set to laugh at her as they were filming. I've never seen
such an awful moment.
Like, teenage girls are yeah. Teenage girls are usually so like in they're much more live than this. She's like probably 17, 18 at this point. How is Justine Bateman such a bad dancer?
I was grateful to see Skippy come in and her go out.
Exactly. Oh my God, wait. Madison, Rhiannon's just tweeted us something interesting, and Scott Jones did too. She said, you'd think that Mallory would have taught Alex some moves before he tried and failed to impress Ellen in season 5, which that is a great episode, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then Scott Jones said, the only good thing about episode 14, it's 15, Scott, come on, get your head out of your ass, is Paul Packler's new haircut.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
By the way, that would apply to both
sorry.
episode 14 and episode 15. That the best thing about both of those episodes is your haircut.
Oh, maybe that's what he meant. That's a good point. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Wow.
but so yes, Skippy enters in this amazing.
We watch Mallory dance poorly, and right before that, we hear from Aunt Trudy, who tells Mallory that when Alex was a little boy, he took tap lessons with her, and he was a dreadful dancer. And Mallory, of course, wants to go and throw it in Alex's face, but she can't throw it in Alex's face because it would be betraying Aunt Trudy's trust. So she tells Aunt Trudy what we don't realize now is a deathbed promise to Aunt Trudy. That she's making a deathbed promise. I will never tell Alex that he's a terrible tap dancer.
Yeah, this is like the same sort of like universal existential crisis of when Obi-Wan promised to train Anakin to Qui-Gon in episode 1. This is the ramifications of this tap dance promise are far-reaching.
No one would ever think, except for the instant later when she clutches her chest in brilliant sitcom fashion. I wonder what happens to Aunt Trudy now. Maybe we should go to the hospital. Okay, doesn't sound very promising. I hope you have your SAG insurance.
Okay, good. I was waiting with bated breath whether I could bring it up. I was like, So do you have anything to tell us, Corey?
I have nothing to say except having had a heart attack and survived, she's a puss for kicking the bucket at 66.
Yes.
What a puss. Have an operation. Yeah. You shouldn't be dropping dead at 66. They should be able to clear the artery with something. But boy, she kicks off so quickly. So sad.
Well, that's the thing. So yeah, this happens, and it goes to commercial break. I was looking at the clock because it went dark, like the screen went dark for commercial break, as I'm watching on my DVD. And I was like, holy shit, it's only 8 minutes and 30 seconds. And they have a whole rest of, 75% of an episode to go.
That's the reason why I have the least notes I've ever had for a single act in Family Ties is this first act. I have half a column of notes. It's like silly. We have nothing. There's no story. Yeah. It's like, we love Aunt Trudy. She's great. There's a garage sale. She drops dead. Good night. That's it.
That's literally it. And so with that, we'll do the weird thing of taking an early commercial break, just like they do, and we'll be right back. And we're back. We're at the hospital. What the hell is going on?
Well, it's just Aunt Trudy's dead. And the hospital is a very busy place. And the nurse won't pay attention to anybody or answer any questions. And the kids were starting to feel as though, Mallory was starting to feel as though she should take it personally. And then when Stephen comes, they ignore Stephen as much as they ignore Aunt Mallory. So it's just nobody's getting any attention paid.
Yeah, these bureaucracies at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Reagan Care.
That's right.
But here, wait. We just got a tweet from @CheshireK, whose name is Carlton Whitfield, a nice secret of my success illusion. She said, being a dancer, you'd think she'd be active and healthier, which is an excellent point about Aunt Trudy. And what Corey was saying earlier, what the hell is wrong with her and the hospital? They couldn't have done something.
Mm-hmm. Scott wants to know what product you should use in your hair, Paul. Gel, mousse, or wax. And when you say mousse, I'm assuming he's referring to the mousse like Skippy's mousse that he held, the mousse head.
I'm definitely voting for mousse because that is brilliant.
Uh-huh.
And he spelled it moose like the moose.
Yeah, like moose and squirrel.
Yes, da. Now, here's the crazy thing. What made me really laugh is, as soon as you see an actor over the age of 60 who's friends with the young people on a show, they're dying that episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the funniest part was that like immediately in the hospital, Skippy and Mallory are already like throwing down their trump cards of like, I remember when she used to do
Yep.
this, and it's just like, oh, we're already there. All right.
I know. It's like, wow. The last they saw her, she had a chest pain. She was upright. She was talking. She's now dead and buried. And this is like a half. It was an hour. She said we've been waiting an hour.
Yeah. And
An hour
so,
later,
and the doctor has the worst bedside manner I've ever seen.
came out and it was right on his face immediately. He was playing dead.
He was.
What should I play?
His name was Dr. Opossum.
He was playing dead.
Yeah.
Sorry. He was already starting with the, sorry, whoops. This one slipped through the cracks. Sorry about that. Hope you didn't like it.
We forgot she was there. We forgot her, and she died. She could have been fine, but we just forgot.
We were so busy. Remember, there was a gunshot victim, and there was somebody with something up their ass or something. There was some other injury, and the nurse was explaining all the problems in the ER that afternoon.
Right. No, wait. Scott just tweeted, "Do not grieve for Aunt Trudy. Envy her because she didn't have to live through the entire episode."
So, well, I agree. That is a very good thing.
Yeah, other than Justine Bateman's performance, which was amazing, this is not the most incompetent episode that we've seen. Like, it's bad. It's bad.
But it's not incompetent.
What's that?
Bad, but it's not incompetent.
Right. It's a new version of terrible that we haven't seen before.
So now we're we're in the second act, and we're in the living room of the Keaton home, and a couple shows up at the door. Now, they're at the wrong place. You know that there's some mistaken identity here, right? We all know that. But here's
because they're not wearing black. Everyone else is wearing black except for them.
And here's the question, though. They thought they were going to the garage sale, so Alex forgot to remove the newspaper listing for the garage sale. But they were going to a garage sale in a jacket and tie?
What was going on in the early 80s when family members come to visit you, you dress up? What is this whole thing?
Hey, honey, I want to go and check out some Bobby Vinton albums. I'm going to put on my tie, put on a nice dress and some heels.
Corey, I love you. Bobby Vinton is, I listen to him more than I have a right to.
I don't understand this show sometimes. The costumer on the show is high. That's all I have to say. I think the costume is high.
Yes. They got like, what, Edith Head? Is that the woman who was like the famous costume designer? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say the couple that shows up, they didn't know Aunt Trudy. They're there for the garage sale. He's wearing a jacket and tie. And Mallory is clearly upset during this scene. She's upset in full view of Alex. She's upset in full view of Steven. And yet nobody picks up on this and gives a shit.
No. Like half a dozen people who are there for the garage sale, or the other half a dozen people who are there for the wake. No one cares about anything.
I do like the actor who played Aunt Trudy's dentist.
Why? I forget what he did. What did he do?
In the past, he was a regular on It's a Living, which I did 2 episodes of. So it's funny. The same character in It's a Living was the cook at the restaurant in It's a Living, and the first guy died of a heart attack and was replaced by this guy, and both of them have been on episodes of Family Ties. both actors who played the
Oh
same.
shit! Okay.
Yeah, the other actor was on on an episode in season 2, and this guy replaced him after he passed away. Richard Shaw. He's a very competent comedic actor with one of those hangdog faces, you know, like a real straight deadpan kind of face. But I thought that
Right.
he had some good lines. Is that, you know, she had lovely teeth. I thought was funny.
That was funny. That was very funny. Now, the other guy that shows up for the garage sale is our old friend Max from the first Gina Davis episode.
Exactly.
Which shows just how much contempt Gary David Goldberg et al. Had for the audience, that they could bring back a character actor within 2 or 3 episodes and be like, oh, he's someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Just pretend, audience. It's all right. No other show would have the balls to do that except this show.
No. Oh. Another tweet from at Cheshire K, Carlton Whitfield. The garage sale / grieving scene is literally my least favorite scene in Family Ties. To be honest, it's so cringy. And I could not agree more. I feel like this is honestly one of the weirdest and most awful, because of its weirdness, scenes in the show.
You know, another thing that I have to mention about, so here we are at Aunt Trudy's funeral, and we know do we know whether she's Stephen's aunt or whether she's Elise's aunt? Do we know that?
See, that's the thing. We had to wait forever to find out. It wasn't until I think this scene that we find out that it was Stephen's aunt. We don't know from which side of his family. Her last name is Harris, which we also find out late as hell. But she's Stephen's aunt, making her Mallory's great aunt.
The crazy thing is, even if it's Stephen's aunt, Elise has got to be really busy out of town not to come back in support of an aunt's funeral.
Let's get into the whole timeline bullshit. So they put in stuff to the paper, to the classified section, saying that there's a garage sale. Then she dies on a Thursday. Alex forgets on Friday to take it out of the paper. And then the wake is on Saturday. And then people on Saturday that came to the wake said, we saw her obituary in the paper. How the fuck long did it take between Thursday and Friday for an obituary to go out? It's madness.
And in this 3-day period of time, Elise couldn't fly from wherever the hell she is to here, and they didn't bother to explain what she was doing that was so important that she couldn't come to Stephen's aunt's funeral.
This is the least work they have ever done in explaining where Elise is. All they say is, oh, your mother's out of town.
That's it. And your aunt dies, but we're not going to mention the fact that mom's not coming. And Mallory, who's clearly upset, maybe she could use a little motherly love. She certainly isn't getting fatherly love in the last scene when he's a douche to her.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're at the funeral.
And here's a question, Corey. It's been forever since I've been to a funeral of any kind.
That's a good thing.
I mean, good for me, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But no. Like, they have the wake before the viewing? That's weird, right?
You Christians do things very differently than the Jews do. I don't know. I haven't had that much. Oh, the Jews bury within 24 hours. You have to bury very quickly.
But they don't.
And they don't have.
But they don't do the.
They don't have the happy party. They don't have the wake. They have the sitting shiva for 7 days after somebody dies, and it's sad. It's not happy. It's not drunken.
Well, I mean, the drunken thing is just an Irish thing. That's not all Christians.
It's not? I thought it applied to everyone.
No, I mean, as far as I know, I mean, I would have maybe I should be Irish or something, but no. Maybe people viewing right now can let us know. Is it a Christian thing across the board or not?
But Mallory gets into it really quickly in this scene with the Reverend. She picks up right away that the Reverend is blowing smoke up her ass. And whether the Reverend is blowing smoke up her ass because she's a kid or because he's incompetent or because he doesn't really care, no matter how you toss it, he really is sort of kind of dismissive of her. And he's another one. Hey, you're a man of the cloth. Can't you see she's clearly upset? Shouldn't you be a little sympathetic to her?
It makes zero sense, Corey. It's like, why does he not care at all? Is he on like tenure and he's like, I'm not going to lose this job. I don't give a shit.
It's what it seems like. It's like, wow. I always thought that clergy was always, portrayed on television with great, oh, we care. We're very deeply sympathetic. I'm so sorry for your loss. But he was all business. He was like, let's move it along. I got a schedule, let's get to the tithing. Let's get to it. Come on.
I mean, see, this is why all Christians should be Catholic, because the Catholic priests, they've given up sex, more or less, and so therefore they have all the time to devote to learning about the lay people, whereas reverends and all these fake Christians, they have sex on the brain, so they can't remember your Aunt Trudy's name, or if she was a tap dancer, or improv jazz or whatever.
I'm not so sure you should mention lay people and Christians in the same breath.
I think I just lost half of our viewers. I feel like I've said so many terrible things in the past 90 seconds.
Yeah, not as bad as me skewering pregnant women in the last episode.
Oh.
But Mallory goes off, and she throws a real fit here, and it's sort of well portrayed by her. I thought she did a good job in expressing her frustration and how important Aunt Trudy apparently was to her, even though the writers never expressed that.
I mean, that's the thing that I really want to point out right now, is the fact that she tears down the entire set with her performance in a good way, and it's like when you have a really bad script, it's hard to get really emotional because you're just like, you feel self-conscious about how dumb everything is. But Justine Bateman goes full force, and it's impressive, even if it were a better script. It's or maybe more so because it's not.
She may be the only person on the show that we've never said a bad thing about.
Oh, Justine?
Yes. Because we've been critical of Michael J. Fox at times. We've certainly been critical of Stephen and Elise, but I don't think we've ever said a critical thing about Justine Bateman, because she almost always is pretty good with almost everything she does.
Honestly, I think I'm going to start keeping track of that, because I think that's honestly true. Everything she does, she's so not given the benefit of the audience and history and all these things. She is the MVP of this show. Because
there really is a lot of pressure and a lot of attention paid to what Michael J. Fox does, and rightly so. There should be, but she gets away with being a little bit under the radar and really does well with it.
Here's the thing, Corey. We just got held to task. We trashed her dancing. Rhiannon's just said that we trashed her dancing. There's one thing. So, that's totally true.
Oh, okay. We did, right this very episode, we trashed her dancing. But as an actress,
we were all fat. We were all hashtag feminism for a good 5 minutes there, and then it was like, oh yeah, we did shit on her about 20 minutes ago.
We can't even remember earlier in this episode. Thanks, man. Thank you so much. That was great.
Yeah. Oh, anyway. So everyone in this funeral viewing scene is terrible. Mallory has a breakdown, runs out, and then we go back to the Keaton's kitchen, where she is making tea.
Now, isn't this where you I think you referred to this either on air or when we were talking before air as the hugging scene? And that's all I wrote down in the scene. I have hug, and hug written down. It was just a lot of hugging going on.
Yeah. This is the hug scene in every episode of Family Ties, and this one is no different. Alex comes in first. He has a hug out with Mallory about, I'm going to miss Aunt Trudy. I'm going to miss her too. Then he leaves, and then Steven and Jennifer come in.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
Jennifer has a moment with Mallory, telling her also something. So she had a cute little line about Aunt Trudy as well. And then Jennifer leaves, leaving Steven and Mallory to have the scene in which he is relatively douchey to her.
Like, the first words out of his mouth are, "What happened back there?" And
it's like, well, that's how you want to approach this?
That's how big I wrote it. Look how big this is. This is huge how big I wrote that.
Seriously? Yeah, that's how you really want to start this scene, Steven? With your daughter, who clearly has an emotion. She's very emotionally invested in Aunt Trudy. How can she be more emotionally invested in Aunt Trudy than you when it's your great aunt?
Yeah. And after witnessing how big of a breakdown Mallory had in the last, 20 minutes ago or whatever, he's going to come in and be like, "Hey, by the way, what the fuck's your problem?" And who starts a conversation that way?
It's crazy. Then it doesn't ever, he never really backs down. They hug it out, but he never really comforts her the way I want him to comfort her in that scene.
Not once. And that's like the thing that we've always talked about Steven is being good at and a proponent of, is a certain type of masculinity that doesn't make you feel shameful or comes from an attacking point. Like, he's always so understanding, and here he's the complete opposite.
Yep. And that's pretty much the episode. It sort of ends on a very quiet moment with them hugging. Looks like Dad has finally been nice to her.
Barely, because there's this one moment where right after that he goes, he says, "What happened back there?" And she's like, "Well, I got pretty upset." And he goes, and she's like, "Well, I'm mad at you." And Alex was making jokes, and he's like, "Well, Mallory, BTW, people grieve in different ways, so you have to let them." And then she goes, I guess I got pretty upset. I should have distanced myself." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe you should have." And it's just like, what the hell? Like, you just said that people are allowed to be dicks and joke around, but someone actually having the most straightforward reaction is completely unacceptable.
Right. He chastises her for actually grieving at a funeral.
In the way that you would expect, not some like highfalutin, sarcastic way of grieving.
Right. She didn't go too far in either direction. It wasn't like she was throwing her body over the casket, screaming, "Why'd you do this to me, Aunt Trudy?" And on the other hand, she didn't stand there and make sarcastic remarks and eye roll like a typical teenager. She was emotionally invested in the woman who supposedly taught her to dance ballet and tap dance, and her love for the arts. Swan Lake. That's why they saw Swan Lake. Yeah. It was clearly a very important part of Mallory's life that we didn't know about before this episode.
And neither did Mallory before this episode, to be fair.
But it was very important.
And then when Steven's like, "I don't deal with death well myself," and he's going to the fridge, and I'm like, "Please grab orange juice."
Yep,
and he's done.
Thank you. I found that to be so satisfying in the very last moment of this episode. Where does he find comfort? In his orange juice / Tang.
Yes, and I thought that maybe this is like the solace that Corey, you and I and Scott too needed to be like, you know what? This episode was a travesty, but this orange juice will take us to the next episode.
It sure will. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the final thing, I even though that was a nice place to end on, I have to shit on this episode a little bit by saying, I mean, more than we already have. Mallory says, "Do you believe in God?" And then Steven goes, "I do." And then she's like, "Well, what kind?" And he's like, "Well, not a fire and brimstone, hell and heaven God." And literally, you guys, those are the lines that Gary David Goldberg will use in the "A My Name Is Alex" episode.
Really?
He plagiarizes himself from this episode to that episode.
Wow. Okay.
Isn't that crazy? Why would you? I mean, that's the most insane thing ever. It's like this is really a trial run of that other episode.
This is clearly something that this is his belief in this is how he sees God. This is how he's speaking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting, and I wasn't expecting it at the moment that it happened, and the fact that it was the exact same dialogue, and I've watched that other episode so many times, I was like, oh shit, and I started transcribing the dialogue. But yeah, so that's the end of the episode. They hug. Justine Bateman cries a bunch, and honestly, I would say watch the second half of this episode just to see a really amazing performance by Justine Bateman. I thought she did a really bang up job.
Yep. My exact words is she was really good. She was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Corey, do you have anything before we close out this nonsense?
No, not at all.
All right, so let me get the credits up for questions and comments. Oh no, rate and review our show on iTunes, which is this thing that exists created by Steve Jobs. For questions and comments, email. Wait, what's that, Corey?
I hadn't heard of that. Really? iTunes.
Oh yeah, it's this new thing. Yeah, it's really cool. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, as some people have been doing this evening, at QTWFT for any updates. You can follow each of us. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep. And Scott, you can find him at Follow Jones.
And I'll say very quickly, if you're listening now, it's already like 2 weeks past when the voting happened. But you know, if you happen to be watching this randomly on YouTube, vote for some of those things Scott put up because we're interested to get your feedback. Like our page on Facebook, where we also do a lot of updates and stuff like that, and get some conversations going. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and an online community supporting other creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. www.fanbasepress.com. We're no longer Fanboy Comics, fanbasepress.com. Also, Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song, Without Us. Check out Perry's website, www. How many W's did I just say? 4?
Too many. Yeah, there was one too many.
I would say do 3 and then stop. .perryadams.com. Also, Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. And then finally, Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. We'll see you next week. Fingers crossed it's a little bit more sane of an episode. Right, Corey?
Sha-na-na-na.
Bye.
Bye-bye.